706 lots 117 and 118, which are 3883 and 3879 Main Road in a village commercial district and the non-Quit Pond Watershed Protection Overlay District. So I'm going to do
There you go.
roll call.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
Susan Gill,
I'm present.
Christine Shea,
Present.
John Hoyle,
Yeah.
Rick Rogers,
Present.
Thanks, Chris.
great, the police chief,
Present.
and Jennifer. We're all present today. So let me just look at my agenda. So we're going to talk about the waived items, the tree planting, and the rear landing, the approved items that were approved by the planning board, the brick patio, the rustic fence, the ADA wood ramp, the AC condensing unit, signs, and 3 skylights, and those were all approved by the planning board. Traffic egress and ingress on the site, police department concerns, public works concerns, building zoning concerns, and we're going to give a recommendation to the planning board. So,
Well, before we start,
sure.
We're here to review the 2 items that were waived by the technical review committee. Has there been a written report to the planning board from the technical review committee, or is that gonna be produced after this meeting?
Probably after this meeting.
It's supposed to be a written recommendation according to the
Right, a recommendation
That's not
from
after
this.
meeting? All right, so what is technical that has to be reviewed about the plantings and the rear landing, the bluestone? We can get information about. And beyond that, I don't think the planning board has any jurisdiction over anything else that's on the agenda. The items that have been approved are not before the review committee. And we have, as far as we know, there haven't been any citations for traffic issues issued by the police department or any zoning concerns issued by the building inspector. So
Okay.
we're not here to discuss those items.
Okay, well, I do want to say that the zoning under development plan review, it does say not only do we need to talk about the waived items, but the approved items, which is kind of, the cart before the horse. We already approved them, but we should talk about them.
What's the talk about at this point?
I'm going to open it up to the TRC members.
We're not here to discuss that. Can we talk about the technical review committee for the waived items? Because that's all that's before the planning board today.
Well, we're going to talk about. I agree with you that the approved items sort of don't make sense, but I do want to open it up if anybody wants to talk about it. And I do want to say, the night that design review was talked about at the planning board, I have it on record that you said that you would be open to talking about traffic egress and ingress and parking at the TRC meeting today.
At a meeting, but not at a legal proceeding, which this is, the technical review committee, to finish the items that we've applied for. I mentioned that we would be amenable to a meeting, which would include the village, all of the village merchants, because we're not the only retail store there. That would include the merchants committee association rather, that Tiffany Pay talked about. That would include the owner of Gray's Ice Cream, I would assume, and any other people that are doing retail in the village commercial district. If you want to set something up like that, we'd be glad to attend, but it's not a legal proceeding that has anything to do with us at this point. That's
so I propose that we talk about the waived items and the approved items on the planning board. And why don't we talk about that first, and then we'll talk about the other items. So I'm going to open it up to the board. What do people think? John and I had waived the tree plantings and the rear landing without going to the planning board. What our justification was that it didn't that it was natural plantings. It wasn't hard landscaping, and that it wasn't completely obscuring the building. So we thought that that was okay, and that the rear landing was a replacement. It wasn't a increase of footprint in the back, and it wasn't viewed directly from the street because it was in the back. I'm gonna say that. Does anyone have input from that?
I'll go ahead and start because I just wanted to kind of let everybody else know what I recall occurred at the planning board meeting. So when they came to us for these items or items that had already been installed rather than presenting them to us for discussion. So the thing to clarify in Article 20 under applications for design review, they needed to provide a site plan of both sites. It discusses structures such as walls and fences, all means of ingress and egress, circulation patterns and traffic control, and the locations and dimensions of all parking and loading areas. So I did cite that at our meeting. Those are all items that are part of design review and are perfectly valid, I believe, for this discussion. As I recall at our meeting, we did approve the items that you had already done. But you did, I believe you did agree to come discuss these other issues that were expressed by abutters, by members of the planning board, that seemed to be, and by building official. And I just felt that we were going to come here and discuss a lot of these other items that need to be kind of sorted out. And I believe you also agreed to submit a site plan for both parcels. Only a site plan was submitted for the grab and go parcel, and I don't think it even included the whole parking area and a detailed parking plan. So we don't have that yet. We've been waiting on a site plan that showed parking, loading, ingress, egress, and I believe that was what we were here to discuss today. That was my impression. Well, throw it back to somebody else.
Yeah, does anyone else have any input or statements?
Can I just ask a question? When you say that you waived the landing, is that the one, the step down off the door in the patio? Or is that the new?
In the rear of 3879. It's the bluestone in the rear of 387.
Sorry.
The patio was approved. The brick patio was approved.
Not the brick patio. I mean, the brick patio was approved at the planning board, but
Right.
not waived. It was just the blue.
So if you get a waiver, it's worse than getting it approved. It's more of a process. First of all, I don't believe that we're required to submit a site plan. That's only for developments. This is not a development. This is a couple of items that they wanted to get approval for. And we should not have been put through this entire process to begin with. I made that clear to the town solicitor early on in this proceeding, that the planning board does not have jurisdiction to order somebody to do a site plan with the items that we submitted. We submitted to do a patio, a back door, and these things in a fence. These things it doesn't constitute a development. So I don't think Article 20 is even applicable. But a site and there's nothing. We shouldn't have to do a site plan that has to do with 3883, where just these items are all apply to 3879. And I think that's been submitted.
Okay, well, I think that we're talking about the waived items and the approved items. If anyone has any.
Well, I respectfully disagree. Article 20 says any exterior changes, site alterations in the village commercial require, if they meet the criteria for design review or site review. And it met the design review because it is in village commercial. And therefore, you fall under section 5B for design review. And it clearly states, and that is zoning. So that is not our jurisdiction, but that is the criteria that we look at when people come to us for design review. We are, by zoning, allowed to look at these things. And I would say that then, I mean, John can speak to it, but I assume that you're required to provide that information to us to take into consideration for the design review. The fact
Okay.
that you didn't, we granted you the relief you were looking for, but we were under the impression you were going to provide us this additional information in good faith.
Okay, I think this is getting off the topic. I wanted to talk about the other items later after we talked about the waive. So if everybody is happy with the waived items and the approved items, I'm gonna say that that's done, that we've talked about that. So what I want to say is that there are other items on the agenda, like we said, the parking, the egress and ingress, and the issues with the police. And I spoke to the solicitor and I told him your concerns, Richard D'Addario's concerns about these other agenda items. And he told me that we should keep them on the agenda and talk about them. So it's up to the applicant if they want to be here to talk about them, but we're going to talk about them, especially because the police chief and John Hoyle are here, and there are definitely issues that I think it would be a benefit for the applicants to listen to. And there are some good solutions
I
that
want
the
you to
chief
know
of
that
police came up with.
Okay. Yeah, my client has been consulting with the police chief.
Okay.
They've talked about a loading zone in front of the building for deliveries, things of that sort. But that's between my clients and the police department. That's nothing to do with the planning board.
I think it is. I think he is on the TRC. He
I
is
know that, but I
a
disagree.
member right now, and he can speak about it.
I don't think the planning board has jurisdiction to discuss this, but go ahead and discuss it. We'll listen.
Okay. So does the chief want to talk about some concerns or things that you've talked about? I know John and I talked to you about potential safety ways to handle the loading and traffic.
Good morning, everybody. So I have met with Mr. McDowell, and I know that the town was in receipt, and I received a copy of a letter that came from several abutters concerning with traffic and pedestrian issues in the general area surrounding Groundswell. And then, as you all know, Main Road is a state road and Neck Road is a town road. So what was happening in the past is when Groundswell was receiving deliveries, they would park there, or the food delivery person would park the truck on the Neck Road side of Groundswell, which is on the south side of the building. That is also designated no parking. And the other issue was if someone was coming southbound on Main Road, taking a right onto Neck, it could be a traffic issue given the narrowness of the road and the blind spot, excuse me, created by that intersection. So in speaking with Mr. McDowell and having back and forth conversations, I've also petitioned the State Traffic Commission because several of the businesses in that area have complained about pedestrian and traffic issues. As a matter of fact, I won't name names, but there was also a business that actually put a sandwich board out in the middle of Main Road to act as a pedestrian crossing. And they were advised that it was an extraordinary liability issue and they can't do that. So the State Traffic Commission and DOT is taking up that area so we can put crosswalks pretty much everywhere in the four corners of the four corners of that intersection, and also in front of some of the other local businesses to improve pedestrian crossing. And then the final thing was, and I know you had mentioned it, Jennifer, about that area right in front of Groundswell, which is kind of like, it's a dirt path or a dirt area. What I was recommending was making that a loading zone. So this way, regardless of the size of the truck, and I know Groundswell was working with their food vendor to either reduce the size of the truck or reschedule deliveries, I think it would be beneficial if, even if it was a larger commercial vehicle, given the cutout that already exists, if we could just kind of pave it, stripe it, post it, and make it a loading zone. So this way a truck could pull up for whatever purpose and just unload all of the materials that they have to without impacting traffic or creating blind spots. So I know the conversation that I had with John was excellent. We had a very fruitful conversation. I've already petitioned the State Traffic Commission. As we all know, they could be a little slow, but I'm staying on top of them. So any feedback that I get from them, I will let the board know.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that Rick had some concerns about the crosswalks in the middle of Main Road, but I think, did you want to talk about that, Rick?
My wasn't so much a concern was simply a relaying of information on Main Road. There was a question asked of DPW quite a while ago if we had any information in regards to a proposed crosswalk on Main Road, and our answer was no, and we still don't, other than what Chief Jones has just brought up, that there'll be additional crosswalks, hopefully at Tiverton Four Corners itself. And the second of two items on crosswalks was a request to put an additional crosswalk on Neck Road, maybe 75 feet or so west of the existing crosswalk. And DPW said that it was not, in DPW's opinion, a good idea. You want people traveling across the road at the intersection. That's how DOT has designed it. And a second very close crosswalk on Neck Road would be more of a safety issue than the one that already exists at Main Road. So those are the two items in regards to crosswalks in DPW's discussion. Thank you, Jennifer.
So I know that John also had some zoning concerns. Do you want to read the letter? That was a great letter, John, that you just sent me, or I can read it.
And Jennifer, could I just?
Sure, you want to answer that? Mm-hmm.
If I could, Jennifer, back to what Chief Jones was referring to, I assume it was the petition letter that was introduced at the last planning board meeting about the traffic concerns. I did run into one of the signers of that, and she actually apologized to us for signing it and said that she wished she had more information prior to doing so, because her understanding was that they were actually looking to garner interest for traffic concerns on Lower Neck Road and Sepauwett roads for people speeding through there. And she said that was what her intent was to try to bring attention to that issue, and not so much the issue related to traffic at the intersection, for what that's worth.
Okay, John?
Yes, Jen.
Did you want me to read the letter? It was a good letter, or you want
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, if you wish.
All right. Let's see. Okay, so John had written a letter. I'm gonna skip over this regarding parking. So off-street parking is regulated by the town zoning ordinance Article 5 and is based on the occupant loads. Focusing solely on the requirements of customers at 3879 and 3883, a total of 28 parking spaces are required. Seating capacities for both properties is 113 seats. Parking requirements calculated at 1 space per 4 customers. This does not take into consideration employees, customers not planning to occupy seating, nor the other properties. Plumbing facilities, so this gets in more into building code. Minimum plumbing facilities are governed by state building code and are also calculated by the number of occupants and customers. Again, solely based on customer occupant load for the 2 properties. Code requires a minimum of 2 male and 2 female water closets and a minimum of 1 each laboratory sink. Additionally, these facilities are required to be ADA compliant. Currently, there is only 1 laboratory facility within the cafe, which is not ADA compliant. As previously mentioned, 5 of the existing structures are serviced by common septic system, which, per the Rhode Island DEM, is designed for a maximum capacity of 64 occupants. The system serves 3883 is approved for the total of 16 seats /5 retail pursuant to the system modifications approved on 12/16/2020. The current proposed occupant loads for these properties significantly exceeds the design capacities per DEM. There have been discussions relative to the additional outdoor seating and the premise of the grab and go, however, provided a place for patrons to consume their purchase is regulated by Rhode Island, I believe, business code, and therefore the capacities that have been calculated are justified. So I think the issue, and I'll let John speak to it, is that he considers the outdoor seating as part of the capacity of both the septic and the necessity for laboratories. Is that right, John?
As well as parking. That's correct.
As well as parking.
So the driving force behind all of the regulatory parts of the state building code and as well as zoning ordinance comes down to the occupant load. How many occupants are on that spot? So we have the people that are in the cafe, which numbers, again, exceed what was rated by the DEM. There are 21 seats inside the cafe right now. There are 7 tables of 2 on the deck. There are 4 tables of 4 on the new patio and a table for 8 on the outdoor patio. That's just on the 3883 property. Now we have, at some point, I've seen as many as 9, as few as 6 picnic tables, okay, in the gated area. Again, whether that premise is to have people buy from the groundswell property and sit and eat, or whether this is in anticipation of the grab and go, when you provide seating, you have to provide the parking, and it increases the occupant load, and you also have to provide laboratory facilities. Again, there had been discussion about the outdoor seating, but if you read the state building code, there was a footnote in table 2902, minimum number of required plumbing fixtures. It says the occupant load for seasonal outdoor seating and entertainment areas shall be included when determining the minimum number of facilities required. So again, the driving force behind the number of bathrooms is the number of seats, outdoor seating, and then the number of seating has an effect on the parking, the off-street parking.
John, I just want to have you calculated how many parking spaces they currently have?
That's that first of all, I cannot, okay, because it's not clear as to there is a requirement in our zoning ordinance as to the size of the parking spaces. I believe it's 9 by 18, but it's a gravel parking lot. There are no lines, there are no delineations or demarcations telling you where a parking spot is. People are just going to park where they feel like parking. I would really like to see an overall site plan of all those properties. I did check the 2 files I have on those 2 properties, 3879 and 3883. I found nothing in there relating to any agreements with the other 4 buildings as far as shared parking, shared means of egress, any of those things. But we do know that those other facilities, or I know at least the barn in the back, that design firm, they use some of the parking spaces. There's also, there are some temporary storage buildings in that area. So I'd really like to see an overall parking plan to be able to determine how many spots we have. We can start with that. And if in fact there's anything on record, and I'm not sure if Councilor D'Addario might know, is there something about the shared parking between all those different businesses? Does somebody have, you got 10 spots over here and you got 10 spots over there and we get the remainder? Is there anything in writing?
Yes, there's an easement and there's an agreement among the village, among the main road property owners. They have a association to share parking. So we share parking across the street as well. And the employees from the Groundswell Cafe have been instructed to park behind the meeting house, which they've been doing successfully. And so there's what, it's complicated. There's a lot of parking. We have quite a few spaces. I think we're in compliance.
There are concrete curbs at all the parking spaces at both the cafe building and 3879. There's 10 spaces behind the cafe, which are solely for the cafe. There's 24 spaces at 3879, which are shared or can be shared with the other merchants there. Plus, we also have, the cafe has an additional 15 spaces deeded in that rear lot. So the cafe actually has on-site 10 plus 15 and 24 next door as well.
So I believe that in the zoning code, shared parking cannot be considered.
Well, then we have 24 and 10.
Has there been an
Well,
issue with
24.
parking there? Are people out of parking? Are they parking on the street? Is that why we're talking about this? Have there been complaints about the number of cars?
Yes.
And who has complained about the number of cars there?
People complain about parking on Neck Road. The parking on Neck Road. And I just want to say,
Well, there shouldn't be any parking on Neck Road. You're correct. It's
five
no
or six,
parking.
probably at least 6 or 7 years ago, the planning board went through a long discussion process about shared parking. And at that time, it was determined that these structures do not meet the criteria for shared parking. And it was never approved or granted to the Four Corners area that it's shared. So it was returned to that, basically each lot or each building was responsible for their own parking. It's always been, I think, an informal agreement for people to do shared parking. But as properties change hands, whether it continues, I don't know, Don can talk about shared parking, but that was the planning board's position a number of years ago.
Can I ask the chief if there have been any parking tickets issued on Neck Road or anywhere else in the last few months?
We have. I know the DPW director recently installed, because we're going throughout the town and making sure some of the signs have been improved or in compliance with the ordinance. Neck Road was one of those areas, and we have issued parking citations in that area.
That should take care of that issue then. If that's the part of the site. If the signs are distinctive enough for people to read them. Otherwise, they get a ticket, like anywhere else. It's not
Well, that doesn't solve the issue.
Responsibility. My client isn't responsible for people that park illegally. That happens
That's not
anyway.
the issue. The issue is conforming with zoning.
We have enough parking spaces.
If you don't have enough
We
seats,
do have enough parking spaces.
I think
Yeah,
that
I think John just addressed that. We have enough spaces. And if we don't, I suppose they'll get a citation from the building official, but it has nothing to do with the planning board.
You mentioned, Richard, that there was some sort of easement. Is that something?
I don't have it in front of me. The deed to 3883 contained an easement to park 15 cars on the lot of 3879. That much I remember.
Well, it was actually in the entire rear lot. It wasn't just associated with 379. It was the entire rear lot.
And
15 spaces applied.
And then there's a agreement among the Merchants Association to allow people to park in other areas of the village, of the district, that are members of the association. So I'd have to ferret out those documents. They're in the land evidence.
If that's what they are, then yes, that'd be helpful for me to make some sort of determination of what we have, because I have to look at the entire site if we are talking about shared parking. And that includes whatever the capacities are for those other buildings on that site.
Well, I wanted to bring it up because it is an issue that that has to be dealt with. Just to circle around again about the loading zone, is that something that the applicant is going to do, or putting the loading zone in front?
We'd be glad to do that if the state commission, the traffic commission, approves it. That'd be fine.
Okay, I understand. So they have to get approval.
Yeah.
First. Okay.
I think the chief has applied for it, so I think we're on the same page as far as that goes, of course, and we appreciate the help on that.
So, are there any? Yeah.
Can I just make a general statement? All right, the village commercial district is a treasure to the town of Tiverton. If there are so many towns in this state that would love to have an area like that, where we have historic buildings that have been preserved despite the fact that there's no historic district, where you have merchants that are able to employ people and make a living, where you have people that love coming to Tiverton and enjoying the beauty of walking around the village commercial district, the Four Corners. People talk about it. It's increased the property values of the houses around Tiverton and all around Tiverton, not just in the Neck Road area, but generally has. People like Tiverton because of the Four Corners district. We should be supporting it, not becoming obstacles to it. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to know, there are some attendees that would like to speak, but this isn't a public hearing, so I'm not gonna allow them to speak. But if you'd like to comment, you can send me an email or the planning board an email and let us know your thoughts. I actually think that this is a productive meeting because we got things on the record that there are traffic issues and zoning issues. Is there anything else that the TRC members want to speak with before we end this?
I wanted to ask about ingress and egress, something I've been thinking about. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know who would be responsible for it. Would be to make it a one-way in, one-way out. The entrance to it on Neck Road is very narrow. I think it's a difficult spot just being right around the corner. And I'm wondering if that could be considered. I don't know how you go about doing that, but if you considered that as the entrance and then the exit would be further up on Main Road. I don't know, it seems like that might solve some of the safety issues if all the traffic was moving in one direction. So I don't know who would address that, but I just wanted to mention it.
I have one thing to bring up. Is this building a registered building around the historic district, or is it just local?
We don't have an historic district in Tiverton.
Okay. So you guys, when you did the construction, you didn't use the historic rehab code. You just used the regular building code.
I think they use the rehab code for an element in the basement. I know they were considering it. I don't know if that ever came into play or not, but I believe it's a registered building. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. Just one thing to note that when I was looking at the drawings is that back door doesn't technically meet ADA. ADA is not.
Which building are you referencing?
The double door. It's a 5'5" door. Technically, according to ADA, you're supposed to have one of those doors have a 32-inch clearance. That being said, ADA is not officially a code, it's recommendation so that you don't get sued. So, so it's not something that, it's not necessarily something we can change, but it's something to flag for you as the owner.
So am I correct in assuming then that all items that we've applied for have been now approved? Will there be a letter telling us that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I'm wondering, do you think it would be valuable if we had all the merchants come in and speak with town staff, like not in a public meeting, but just with town staff? Do you think that would be productive? Because I'm sure we would be open to that.
Definitely.
Okay.
What's the resolution?
The lead of that? Who runs the merchant?
Not sure.
I
John.
think it might be Tiffany Pay. She might be the first person.
It
is, yeah.
I think she's pretty active in the association. Okay. Maybe the president. I'm just wondering how do you go about resolving the septic and tables parking issues? I don't know where that goes. I know it's not under our jurisdiction, but from this meeting, I mean, is something going to change, or because it seems like they may be in violation? What happens next, I guess, is the question. And I think that's what other people want to know, what happens next.
Well, I think they have to go talk to John. And John needs to have discussions with them about zoning compliance. Is that right, John?
No, yeah, I agree. The fact is, Mr. Dario, I kind of take umbrage with the fact that you allude to the fact that we're being obstructionists here. That is not how I operate. I want to help. That's what I'm here to do. All right. That's how I feel. It's how I've been doing it for 33 years. All right. You just have to understand my job is to ensure compliance with the state building code and with the zoning ordinance. Building and zoning officer, that is my charge. If I see something that doesn't fit, we have to resolve it. I will explore options. I love what you're doing down there. I truly do. Okay. But you have to understand it's too much stuff in one spot right now. We might be able to resolve the parking if somebody showed me a site plan and somebody was able to provide me with whatever documentation you have that stipulates that the shared parking is, amongst all the owners and operators of those buildings. Then we'd have to do a complete study as to what the occupant load of all those buildings are. And that may be already established by what DEM had done when they redid the septic system, because they show every building on one site plan except 3883, and 3883 is on a separate site plan. And if you look at what DEM had said, the total occupant load is, it's in the 60 something number for the entire sites, for both sites together. So if you want to start separating the sites, we can do that, all right? And you're going to have a big problem with groundswell for the capacity. You're going to have to remove 95% of the seating on that building alone. DEM said 15 and 6 or something like that, 20 something. There's 21 seats inside and there's another 30 outside. So you're not in compliance with the DEM in that respect, but they don't really have any jurisdiction. That falls on me to be an enforcement agent. Okay. I have some ideas I'd like to share with you that I would accept. And if I can't outright accept them, as an attorney, you understand there's always an appellate process. You can take my findings. You can dispute them if you wish. I'm pretty confident that I read these ordinances in my building code relatively correctly. If somebody wants to challenge it, I'm all for it. All right. And if you want to appeal it, I got no horse in this race except to do my job. Okay. Like I said, however it is, I can help you guys do that. Okay. That's my intention. Okay. Just please don't think that I am an obstructionist in any way, shape, or form.
No, it wasn't meant to you, Mr. Hoyle. I think you have an obligation to uphold the building code. And you also have an obligation to act within the confines of the state, the town's charter, and bring up these topics today at a planning board meeting for technical review on 2 items. I think that's misled, and I think that doesn't help the process. If you want to sit down and talk about items that are issues and try to resolve them, we can. But to use the technical review of 2 small items to try to stretch the agenda out, as the planning board has done today, I think is not proper. And that was my point. And there are other people that live in the area of the groundswell that have some authority in this town that have acted as obstructionists, in my opinion. Now that's just my opinion, okay? I think we should support the village district and help the merchants there make a living, not make it difficult for them. That's all I'm saying.
I thank all the members and the applicants for coming today. I think if no one else has anything left to say, we can I can motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
Great. So
Have a good day, everybody.